So, in the world of gaming, one of the more weirdly controversial subjects is the topic of video game pricing. On this channel, I've raised the point about video game pricing in several videos, but I even dedicated a singular video about it when Pirate Software was talking about raising prices on video games. But the conversation goes back much further, as there was a controversial video released by the creator Extra Credits back in the day on YouTube talking about the very same subject. Typically, it's the usual suspects who come out defending high prices on video games, and some of them go as far as arguing that games should be even more expensive than they are today. However, in today's video, one of our favorite industry insiders is discussing this topic in a more honest and customer-friendly way. Hello fellow travelers and welcome to the Hardlight Network. In modern gaming, one of the quickest ways to upset your customer base is to price them out of their favorite hobby. One of the most recent examples I can point to is the customer backlash surrounding the prospective $100 price tag on GTA 6. Though it isn't the only example, as developers have been steadily raising their prices over the last 5 years. However, none other than one of this channel's favorite industry insiders, Fallout co-creator Tim Cain, has some interesting takes on this situation. In today's video, we've got a short article to read on his specific takes, but there's also a few other points that I want to raise personally after the fact. But before we get into it, guys, do me a solid and hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the content that I've got coming up for you guys in the future, and also take to the comment section down below with your thoughts on video game pricing. Also, if you do in fact want to support this channel further, there are super thanks and memberships options down below. Feel free to join the channel today for access to exclusive content and perks that you can't get anywhere else. But without any further ado, let's get into today's article. And of course, we've got another article from our friends over at PCGamer.com entitled, Fallout co-creator Tim Cain says game prices, quote, have resisted matching inflation because publishers have been pocketing the cost savings from digital distribution. Wind blows, birds fly, and Tim Cain YouTubes. The Interplay, Troika, and Obsidian developer, and OG Fallout co-creator, is once again nattering on his YouTube channel, via GamesRadar, and his topic this time is the divide between physical and digital media. Cain strikes a pretty pro-digital distribution tone at the video's start. Being able to stick a game on Steam rather than order print runs of discs means devs have more time to work on games, because there's less lead time between finishing development and shipping. It means games are easier to patch, and it means old games, like the many classic Cain worked on, can remain easily accessible in hopefully perpetuity. But where things really heat up is with Cain's thoughts on how digital distribution has impacted game pricing. Digital is cheaper, says Cain. It's cheaper for everybody. It's less cost all around. In theory, he continues, prices should have dropped, but they didn't. In Cain's telling of events, rather than spread the wealth out of sheer generosity of spirit, the capitalists just kind of, well, kept it. You know, those cost savings for being digital, those should have been passed on to customers. They didn't. The argument I hear is, well, costs were rising in development, so they were balanced. I don't think they were balanced. In other words, the money saved on not having to do physical media anymore got pocketed by the corps. Now, there's a flip side to that. Digital probably is the reason why games have resisted matching inflation. I've said this before, I bought games for $59 in the 90s. That would have been a really expensive game these days. And these were standard games for, like, Super Nintendo. That is to say, the extra sauce corporate bottom lines got from the recouped money that would have been spent on physical distribution meant they could keep games price steady without eating too much into their margins. That's Cain's explanation anyhow. Cost of goods, or COG, you hear this a lot as a developer. Your publisher will say, our COG is really high. Those dropped tremendously with digital, but those savings weren't passed on. Of course, if Cain's analysis is correct, then it seems we're already past the point where savings from digital stood any chance of being passed on to consumers. The games industry, with its ever bigger budgets, is increasingly a series of big bets on projects that publishers hope will pull in mega bucks. And more games are daring to charge $70 or $80 on release day. Hell, there are even whispers GTA 6 might charge as much as $100 when it releases. Now listen, as a big fan of CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk, I'm all about sticking it to the corpo suits whenever and wherever possible, but I don't necessarily think that this is entirely a consequence of the game of capitalism. There are a lot of factors that come into play when talking about video game pricing that I do want to discuss in this video. However, first and foremost, Tim Kane's point about digital distribution being the primary reason why games have resisted inflation is valid. However, I do want to state that it wasn't until recently that many console developers decided to go full digital, and with this decision, it's put an end to the physical distribution of many modern games. So while there have been digital releases for many titles over the past few years, it wasn't until very recently that the majority of games became digital-only releases. Which means that the overall savings for digital-only production have actually increased up until this day. It's simple math. The volume of these digitally exclusive games being produced has increased. Therefore, the savings incurred by these digital-only runs have also increased. But like the article says, the time where the argument can be made that those savings should be passed on to customers is coming to a close. However, that isn't the end of the discussion when it comes to video game pricing. One of the other reasons why producers often say that the prices of video games have increased is because of larger development teams. However, since 2024, we've seen an increasing number of layoffs throughout the entirety of the industry. Thousands of game developers have been let go or otherwise fired as a result of these layoffs. Therefore, these teams are inherently smaller than they were before. Are we genuinely meant to believe that these companies haven't seen a reduction in their development costs when upwards of 10% of their employees have been laid off? Major video game developers such as EA, Microsoft, and Sony have also announced major rollouts of AI production tools that are said to cut costs. If these tools have the desired outcome of decreasing workload on designers as well as increasing production time, doesn't that mean games will become cheaper to make? Obviously, I would argue yes, but I don't honestly believe that we will see a return from the $70 to $80 pricing norm that has been established over the last couple of years. At the end of the day, the major reason why video game prices are increasing has nothing to do with production costs, economic standards, or even digital distribution, but it has everything to do with shareholder interests. So long as the people signing the check are expecting a return on their investment, we will continue to see increased prices for games. However, there is one more game design element that I would like to touch on before ending this video, and that has to do with the live service and microtransaction model that we've seen explode over the last 10 years of game development. Over the years, many developers have become increasingly reliant on a smaller yet more profitable customer base known as whales. Whales are gamers who are typically associated with the live service model or mobile gaming marketplace, who are willing to spend much more than the standard asking price for their favorite games. These are either customers who are willing to contribute to the pay-to-win meta found in many modern games, or who are simply more comfortable paying a larger amount of money over time through smaller, cumulative purchases. Whether it's through in-game upgrades, skins, or other microtransactions, these players are willing to spend much more money than the average customer. As a result, many modern game developers are tailoring their live service gaming experiences around capturing and milking these whales. At the end of the day, whether it's through increasingly restrictive DRM, the implementation of AI production tools, or catering to whales, what this all translates to is a lower quality product for an increasing price. Because no matter what, the shareholders are going to expect a higher return on their investment, whether or not the game is good. But that's going to do it for this video today, guys. Thank you so much to everybody who has watched up to this point. If you like this video, leave a like and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the content that I've got coming up for you guys in the future. Also, don't forget to take to the comment section down below with your thoughts on the current video games marketplace. One of the common terms that I've heard thrown around when it comes to the state of the video games marketplace is enshittification. And as we continue forward, I think it becomes a much more and more accurate term as the days go by. However, it's not all black pills and it's so overs from this channel, because the gaming landscape is so vast and varied that there are still plenty of treasures to be found, both old and new. That being said, there's still a lot more work to be done on this channel, so as always, thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, leave a like, and until next time, love you guys, safe travels.